بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wa salatu wassalam ala rasulillah, wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa hlul 'uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone. Welcome to our Tuesday night program. My name is Suzanne Kasim. I am your host for tonight. Dr. Haifa Yunus is out of town. Our topic tonight is inspired by this very special month, the month of October, which is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. We prepared a very special program for you tonight to talk about domestic violence among the Muslim community. Domestic violence affects women and men of all cultures, religions, and ethnic backgrounds. And due to the taboo nature of the subject, Muslims are often reluctant to report or speak about their experiences. The responses to incident of domestic violence are also varied as the community is diverse. Tonight, we will outline domestic violence definition. We will talk about the warning signs, power and control wheel, and we will also discuss the prevention strategies from an Islamic perspective and share details of the wonderful work of Peaceful Families Project and the services they offer nationwide. Joining me tonight is Dr. Denise Ziya Berte. Dr. Berte is the executive director of the Peaceful Family Project. It is an initiative devoted to ending domestic violence in Muslim families. Dr. Berte is a licensed doctoral level clinical psychologist with over 25 years experience in forensic psychology and trauma, including domestic violence and international issues related to mental health, war, and refugees. Dr. Berte graduated from Temple University in Philadelphia with a bachelor's degree in psychology, and from the State University of New York at Albany, with a master's and doctorate degree in clinical psychology. Dr. Berte has published over 17 articles in professional journals and 3 book chapters. Dr. Berte, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to the Tuesday night program.
Wa alaikum assalam. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. And I'm so happy to be here to talk about really one of my passionate causes as a Muslim, as a woman, and as someone who believes in human rights.
Can you tell me, tell our viewers obviously about the Peaceful Family Project that you are currently or actively involved in?
Absolutely. Peaceful Families Project actually has been in existence for over 20 years. We had a variety of founders and advisory boards who have sort of brought it to life from infancy. And I was sort of a fan for a long time and sort of watched and worked with them, eventually was trained through their community training program, and just became executive director a year ago. So
congratulations.
Very excited. Shukran. Very, very excited to talk about the project. Peaceful Families Project is, in fact, this sort of national umbrella for domestic violence awareness from an Islamic perspective for Muslim communities across the United States. And then what we have what we call international impact, and I'll talk a little bit about that. So the model that we use really is about going back to our deen. So there is this crazy idea around that somehow Islam is not a place where we can talk about domestic violence, that somehow to sort of address domestic violence, we have to move away from our deen. And in Peaceful Families, we really talk about the positive roadmap, the positive models we are given in Islam for peaceful, positive, nurturing families, not outside of our religion, not outside of our deen, but really within our deen, really going back to the Quran, going back to the deen.
Absolutely, yes.
Basing our knowledge in that.
Yes.
So the way that we do that we have 4 major sort of initiatives, and then I'll talk about our specific programs. So one thing that we do is training. So what we realized is we have to do training on both sides. We do a national imam and chaplain training. We just did that last weekend for the first time in 2 years because of COVID complications, where we take imams and chaplains from across the country and really work with them on the issues of domestic violence and how to create positive functioning Muslim families. Because imams many times are the first sort of the first place where folks go, and many times they don't have professional training. They don't even have religious training in marriage itself and how it's supposed to work, other than, the couple of verses that the couple of surahs that we all know.
Right.
So we do training not only though with religious leaders, but we also go within communities, and of course within our ummah here in the United States. That means a wide variety of folks. When we do programming, we're looking at 14, 15 different languages from many different countries, from many different immigrant experience, also from an African-American Muslim perspective, because of course that is the roots of Islam here in the United States. So we really want to touch all of those communities. So we do have community trainings at every level of the community. And then we also work with mainstream providers. So people who work with domestic violence victims who don't know anything about Islam, but who then are put in a position to serve Muslim women. And it's interesting, they are so excited to hear about what our perspective is. The last time I did a training with the state of Delaware, it sold out. It was a virtual training. It sold out in like 10 minutes. I was like, I am not that much of a rock star. What is going on? And it really has to
10 minutes. That's amazing.
It really has to do with mainstream providers wanting to know, wanting to have that piece of cultural competency. So we do trainings yearly, and you can go onto our website. We'll talk a lot about our website. Our website is sort of a treasure chest of resources. The second thing that we do is to create resources that are very specific for Muslim communities. So we have talking points for imams. We have a survivor toolkit. We have domestic violence sort of 101. We call them tea talks or coffee talks, depending on which culture we're dealing with. We have them in 5 different languages. We have them in Arabic, in Urdu, in Spanish, in English. Shukaman, there's another one and I can't remember it. But we also work in Mandingo, in a lot of the West African languages as well. So we have a wide variety of resources for communities who are trying to address this. And again, unfortunately, and we'll talk about research as well, unfortunately, so many of the materials are based in sort of a very mainstream cultural understanding. And we know that as Muslims, we look at things in a different way. We look at things through the lens of our deen.
Absolutely.
So we try to make resources that manage that. And I'll talk a little bit about some of our new resources as well, because we have a reveal party coming this week. We also have an area of research. So there isn't a lot known, as you mentioned. It's a bit of a taboo. There is not a lot known about the experience of domestic violence in Muslim communities, and we're a little quiet about it and I think part of that is because in the mainstream view, Islam is sort of is notorious for domestic violence, although that is not at all representative of what our beliefs and what our
but that's the perception in like all communities across the board. Yeah.
So about 10 years ago, in 2011, Peaceful Families sponsored the first survey of domestic violence experience across the United States. We had about 800 participants, but that data is now old. So we are doing the new one. I will try to share in the chat in a bit the link. We do, but go to peacefulfamilies.org. We do have the new survey for 2021. We are trying to at at least meet our previous data set, which was about 1,000. And it's for any man or woman who just happens to be over the 18 or over and is Muslim. Because all we want to know is what do Muslims know, think, and experience in the area of domestic violence. Aside from our own research, we also, of course, support Muslim researchers who are interested in this area. Because we know that a lot of the solutions that are given in the literature, in treatment programs, come from a perspective that is not Islamic, then it's really important for us to be able to talk between ourselves, to be able to use the resources that we have that other people don't have in the area of domestic violence. So research is our third piece. And then we have a fourth sort of way of doing our work, which has to do with what's called affiliated partnerships. So we work from the top national level. So we are on the White House Committee for Intimate Partner Violence. We are also working, we are the sponsors of what's called MANAVDI, which is the Muslim Advocate Network Against Domestic Violence, which is 40 Muslim service providers and individual practitioners who are working from a Muslim perspective on the area of domestic violence. We really work to make sure that the voice of Muslim victims, the voice of Muslim experience, the voice of Muslim male allies are part of the national discussion. So that's our affiliated partnerships. Now within those four sort of avenues, we have several programs. So we have our general Peaceful Families, which has to do with teaching people about the Islamic model of marriage, how it works best, and the idea.
Is this through like workshops that you teach?
Nonviolence, exactly. So we have curriculums. One of our founding mothers has 2 separate books. So there's a lot of literature about that. We also are starting, we have our reveal party on Sunday, our new youth curriculum.
Oh, wonderful.
You and I both know that domestic violence doesn't start when you get married, right?
No.
It starts from way before.
Way before, yeah.
That you have about what marriage is. It's the skill or lack thereof. And so we have our new curriculum called Peaceful Futures, which has a section for middle school, high school, and university age youth. And it's an 8-session curriculum that looks at family. It looks at Muslim identity. It looks at positive relationship skills, healthy relationship skills. It looks at cyber citizenship, because that's a whole new part of relationships that we didn't have previously. It talks about diversity and tolerance within our own communities and with outside communities. And we will be revealing, we have our reveal party. You know, reveal parties are a big thing these days, right? So my new thing is, it's not a girl, it's not a boy, it's a peaceful future for all Muslims. So we are having our reveal party with appetizers, with samples from the curriculum itself this Sunday at 7:00 Eastern time.
That's online as well, or?
That is online as well. So feel free to go on and register for that. With that curriculum, we will be doing, and we are looking for Islamic youth groups, schools, and masjids who are working with youth. We will have a pilot program of 10 groups across the country. We're going to do a training of trainers, because it is
that's very important.
It's a little bit of a minefield when you talk about these things with younger folks, because you have to manage their parents' expectation, the community's expectation, and their world, which is many times very, very different than the parents in the communities that they're living in. So we're going to do a training of trainers. We will be giving out, for that first 10 groups, we will be doing that, giving out the curriculum for free, and then of course investigating it to make sure that it does what we want it to do. So that's our Peaceful Futures program. We also have Peaceful Partners, which are our male allies. What we realized is, this is not a women issue. This is a community issue for all of us. Domestic
Actually,
violence,
even male have issues with
Right.
domestic
So one
violence.
is, you
Yeah.
know that the
And I was
statistics,
surprised to read about that, but there are a few
1
cases.
were
Yeah.
women, 1 in
Yeah.
7 males. So there are males. Now, again, we'll talk a little bit about how that works, because it usually, when we talk about power and control. So especially when we have situations with immigrant men, for example, who may not have power because they need their wife for an immigration status, or maybe the wife is making more money, or those kinds of things. Because domestic violence really comes from power and control. But we also know that to change whatever is happening in our society, we go hand in hand with our brothers. So we do have a male allies group. They are doing amazing work. We have what's called the Peaceful Partner Pledge, which is our brothers, which is Muslim males coming up to say, I am the head of my family and I don't use violence to keep that leadership. That's not part of my deen, right? Our new DV is not my deen. DV is not part of what my commands are from the Prophet, peace be upon him.
Sallallahu alaihi wasallam, yes.
So we have our Peaceful Partner Pledge that we ask our brothers to go online and endorse. And then there's a lot of programs. The way that males do programs are very different than the way that we do them. It's a lot of education. It's a lot of male pride, which is to say there's no honor in beating
violence.
a woman.
Yeah, in violence. There's no honor. Yeah, definitely.
No honor in that.
Right.
We also have what's called peaceful parenting, which is looking at nonviolent parenting as well. We know that for a lot of reasons, because of intergenerational trauma, because sometimes of the situations that people are living in their country of origin, sometimes because they don't have coping skills, or that they were treated violently as children, that parents don't know what else to do. But we also know that to build a strong ummah, to build a strong Muslim community here in the United States with our youth, we need to find different ways. So we have our peaceful parenting points. They go online. We have a curriculum around how to parent in creatively and positively without sort of relying on violence, because we know that violence not only is not effective, it just doesn't work very well. But it is one of those things that sends our young people away from our
and it creates abusive adults. I mean, the children become abusive adults also. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Then we have what is called peaceful partings. And we have, as Muslims, we have a funny relationship with divorce and this idea of peaceful partings. Despite the fact that it's absolutely part of our tradition, it is a beautiful gift from God, from Allah, to give us a relief, right? After
absolutely.
comes relief, and some marriages are not about sakina. Some of them do not give us peaceful places. And when a marriage does not create a peaceful place for its family, for the children and the spouses, then really we have this beautiful gift from Allah, which said you are absolutely allowed to peacefully part. But emphasis on the peacefully, right? So how do we peacefully part? How do we do that in a way that is not hurtful? And how do we do that in a way that we can still co-parent and work with that? So peaceful parting is another one of our programs. And then we have Peaceful World, which is taking our curriculums global. We have worked in Darfur. This summer I was in Nablus, which is my hometown, working.
And mine too.
Training, alhamdulillah. Working on training with the communities, and we were very specifically working on the new family protection law in Palestine, and having and understanding why the population actually rejected it, which was kind of an interesting place to be. But how excited they were to be able to reframe what domestic violence is in a way that's conducive, that goes with their religious tradition and their cultural beliefs. So we do have Peaceful World as well. So we have all of those programmings doing the same thing: training, research, creating resources, and then working with affiliated groups. So that's kind of how Peaceful Family works. And as I said, we have 20 trainers now across the country. We have this month so many domestic violence awareness month activities. And I'm always kind of mixed feelings about it because we're not celebrating domestic violence.
No, exactly. I don't want it to sound like we're celebrating. We're just educating, actually. But we're excited about the possibility of all these programs to help people in these situations. And there is an outlet and there is a solution.
Absolutely. And it's multifaceted. So I can tell you tomorrow we are working with the Interfaith Coalition and doing a program on how COVID affected domestic violence services. In the evening tomorrow, we have financial literacy for women, because we know that having women who are financially sound and savvy helps them be in safe relationships, because they don't stay in relationships only because of economic. On Sunday, we have our reveal party for Peaceful Futures. And then on the 22nd, the next Friday, we have the first national research symposium on Muslim issues in positive family functioning and domestic violence. So this month we have really a myriad of activities. If folks are interested, please go to our website, just register, no cost whatsoever. And it's a good way to not only learn more, but also get connected with other Muslims across the country.
Thank you. I'd like you to start with outlining a domestic violence definition, talk a little bit about the warning signs, power and control wheel.
Absolutely. I think there's a lot of confusion about what this idea of domestic violence is.
Yeah, so let's clear
we do have this idea that it's that it's like an American thing, that it's a Western thing, it's a European thing. It's not, that it's just not part of our
And they think it's a Muslim thing.
And they think
it's a Muslim. Yeah, exactly. It's like the opposite. Yeah.
This, right. One thing about domestic violence that we know is domestic violence isn't normal anger. It's not regular, arguments between husband and wife of I want it colder and you want it hotter. I want to buy, new shoes and you want to save money, or the kind of things that happen in everybody's household.
Right.
Domestic violence also isn't that one time when, you lose your mind and throw a glass across the room. And that's not domestic violence either. Domestic violence is really a pattern of behavior. It's something that shows up in many different places, that has its basis in a belief that one person in that relationship has more rights, has more intrinsic value than the other person in that relationship. And unfortunately, and that's why we don't see the same level as men and women, to be honest, is because society for a very long time, and this is Christianity, Judaism, the misuse of Islam in every country, have had this idea that maleness, that male contribution to the household, that male physically are stronger, smarter, and should be treated differently in a relationship than women, right? So we know that perpetrators of domestic violence are not people who have anger problems, right? They go to work, they don't, yell at their boss, they go to the bus stop, they don't punch the bus driver. It's something that is uniquely part of their family life, because in the truest of sense, they have been taught that that's part of what being in a family is. Now, we also know that that is not our Islam. That is not.
And actually, I hear they're like the most charming people. Like people, actually, they're well liked outside of the home.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Sometimes they're very, very charming.
Yeah.
Now, what we know is that we were taught in the Quran, I made you from the same soul, I made you partners of one another. I made you garments, one for the other. Mm-hmm. I made you with the goal of sakina, using love and Rahman love, and mercy, right? So we know that that's what our deen says. And somehow our communities and some of our cultures, picking up things from other colonial cultures, picking up things from older community regulations, somehow took that beautiful message and twisted it, right? So that when we talk about the Islamic model for domestic violence, we are going back to what our Prophet, peace be upon him, what he showed us in his marriages, right?
Yes,
the kind of husband that he was, the one who got down and washed the dishes and fed the goats and played with children and never once raised his hand against anyone.
Absolutely.
So when we talk about domestic violence, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about that inherent, and we're talking about real violence. And I think a lot of times when we talk to audiences, they're like, oh, well, but we're talking about real violence. We're talking about hospitalizations. We're talking about sometimes even death, right? So we're not talking about normal communication or normal kinds of fights.
Disagreements,
We're talking about real violence in the context of the place that is supposed to be your safety, your peaceful place, the place where we can rise up and nurture each other to make each other strong believers, right? So when we look at those things, and I think one of the things that comes up in our imam and chaplain training frequently is that it's a place where that premarital counseling really can make a difference. Because
and workshops, yes, absolutely.
Warning signs, right? So warning signs having to do with the need for very, very high levels of control. I need to know where you are every second of the day. I need to have access to all of your electronic passwords. I need to be able to look at your phone. I don't feel comfortable with you talking to your mother, your sister, your friends. I don't want you to go to school. I don't want you to go to work. Now, there may be reasons within a family why some of those things would come up normally. But when you see this pattern of complete and like I've had sisters who the refrigerator is locked until the husband comes home because they're not even allowed to determine, what food to eat or to give their family if the husband is not there or if the perpetrator is not there. So that's when we kind of talk about this sort of wheel of power and control, because domestic violence isn't about anger. It really is about absolute power and control, which we know as Muslims, we call that, oppression.
Absolutely,
no matter who does it, no matter where it comes from. And one of the beautiful things about Islam is what we're taught to do in the face of oppression. And the hadith where someone goes to the Prophet, peace be upon him, and says, well, what do we do? It's clear what we do for victims. What do we do for perpetrators of oppression? And our Prophet, peace be upon him, said, we stop them.
Right.
We don't allow them to continue.
Absolutely.
Right. And
I think we
is our son, if that is our brother, if that is our daughter, right? So that we have the obligation, not only the right, but the obligation to educate them about the actions that they are doing that are actually oppressive. So when we talk about that oppression, what it looks like in that power and control wheel are things like absolute economic control. Like, I don't give you any access to money. I don't want you to have your own money. And I don't give you any information about money, right? You should just be happy that I provide for you and not have any right. So we have sisters, even begging for basic personal hygiene needs, those kinds of things. We have power and control over documentation, for example, right? Especially in families where there has been, we were talking about relocation, and many of us who have lived in many different countries and have multiple passports and visas and all sorts of complications, where one person says, no, you don't have the right to hold your own passport. I don't trust that you will not go somewhere.
Or even forging their signatures.
forging their signature,
Forging their
taking
signature, taking
passports
over.
of the
Right.
children.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
legal, you don't have
Yeah.
legal rights. And in many cases, unfortunately, we have even US citizen husbands who know the law and who are bringing wives thinking that they are better behaved if they come from somewhere else,
Right.
and not having equal access linguistically. So the
Yes.
woman they marry doesn't understand the system, many cases doesn't even know whether she's married or not, doesn't know that he has another wife. Now, again, there's nothing wrong with polygamy if you do it in the way of the
Prophet,
deed,
sallallahu alaihi
which
wasallam.
means
Yes.
that it is
Yes.
open.
Yes.
That means we all know about it. That means we all agree
Right.
about it.
Exactly.
So when we talk about power and control, we talk about all of these areas, controlling children. You know, where did your mom go? What did she do? Tell me what they did. If mommy ever does anything, you have to come and tell me. Look at your mom. She's crazy. She's bad. She's a bad Muslim. And as part of that, there's also even power and control over our spirituality. And that's taking our beautiful sacred texts that says you are one soul and focusing in on specific verses or twisting them to say, you know, no, this is my job as your husband in Islam to change you, to force you to be. And we all know that in religion there is no obligation, right?
No.
That is
There's a lot of they manipulate the text.
that is not part of our deed.
Total
That is
manipulation.
part of abuse is this idea of spiritual abuse, where even your relationship with Allah, even your being as a Muslim becomes twisted in some way. So when we look at that power and control, where we see oppression, we see a human right violation, which we as Muslims are absolutely cannot tolerate, right?
And you said it's a human right violation. It's not just, I mean, that's all religion, all, whether you believe in a religion even or not, you being human, that's a violation of your right as a human, period. And oppression is not accepted by anybody or any human being, period.
Absolutely.
It has nothing to, I don't see it having to do with, I mean, Muslims, yeah, we have the solution in the religion, but oppression itself is not accepted.
In some other religious traditions, there is this idea of, you know, like Eve was taken from the rib because she was, you know, a subservient to. Eve was responsible for eating that. So there is
the twisting. Twisting, yes.
From the very beginning, this twisted story. But we as Muslims do not have that excuse. No, that is not part of our story. That is not part of our narrative. That is not part of our deed. So we sort of cannot escape. We have a very clear commandment and sets of regulations and a positive model for family functioning. So, but that's the sort of the idea of power and control. And when you begin to see those things very early in a relationship, during an engagement, for example, somebody who cannot tolerate any you know, when we talk about the leadership model in Islam, it's by mutual consultation, right? There was never dictatorships within the early companions of the Prophet, peace be upon them. They sat, they talked about things. That was, you know, that's what kept them faithful to Allah's word and not each of their own sort of greed.
The shura, that discussion, that consultation, absolutely, yes.
Absolutely.
Very essential.
And we know that's true in the household as well. So when we have someone who cannot tolerate even to hear, you know, a dissenting voice or a different opinion, or, you know, maybe we can look at it this way, or maybe there's a different way we can do it. So when we begin to see those things, those are red flags within a relationship or within an engagement, for example. Now, as community members, we also see things. And many times, I was actually at an Islamic center a couple of weeks ago, and the imam even said, he's like, we take the policy of don't see, don't hear, don't tell, right? We see, you know, the black eye. We see the kids who flinch when, you know, somebody walks into the room. We see our sisters who are like happy and then quiet, or we don't see them at all for weeks and weeks and weeks, right? We see some signs. We see the brother maybe who will talk badly about his wife. See, look, she made this. Isn't it terrible? She's a terrible cook. But, I'm so sorry. Forgive me for, the look of my children. My wife is, we hear those things. We really do. And as communities, sometimes we forget that we're Muslim and we just say, this is a family issue. Now, we know that Islam, we talked about the nosy aunties, right? We know that in
Right,
Islam,
we did.
there's no such thing as a family issue, that it's all part of the community, which is
You're
beautiful.
married to the family. When you get married, you are married to the family, for sure.
And we are all, as Muslims, we are our family. That's why we call each
Yes.
other brother and sister, which means
Yes.
if we see it, it's ours to manage. It's ours to at least.
Yes.
Now, again, we don't, open it up in front of the whole masjid and be like, what?
Right.
We talk quietly, we talk confidentially, we offer support. We don't offer judgment. We don't know what the situation is. We don't offer judgment, but we do offer support. And we offer at least correction, which is to say, I don't know, brother. We had an imam over the imam training say, come in, we have a parishioner, someone from the community come in and say, oh, well, it all happens in all our homes. And just being able to say, no, you know what? I never use violence in my home. No,
Yeah.
it doesn't.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
It does not happen. No.
It doesn't happen in every home. And it's not okay. My favorite word was like, it's not okay. Right.
No, it's never okay.
It's not okay.
Never okay.
So sometimes it's just those comments, right? It's just interjecting those comments so somebody, startles into, oh wow, this isn't okay. We talk about masjids with zero tolerance policies, right? We have a zero tolerance policy for violence within our masjid. That is also, by the way, not only to save the perpetrator from being an oppressor, but also to save the family legally, because we do know that we are living in the United States, that there are laws around this. And it's often not the wife who will call. It is a neighbor who will.
Absolutely.
It is a doctor who will see.
Yes.
It is a school where the child will go and say, this is what happened in my home. So it's equally dangerous for the perpetrators of violence within our communities, and we want to save them as well. We don't want to rip apart the family, either because someone goes to jail or someone gets deported or those kinds of things. So the best way to protect,
or the children become foster children.
Exactly.
That's a big thing.
Is not quiet, but to take active, to be actively supportive of our families, but also of our ideal of positive family functioning in Islam, because we want our kids, and we did talk about, unfortunately, with both child abuse and domestic violence, it is the place where we're losing a lot of our young people, because they're saying, if this is my religion, I
don't want to be part of it.
I don't want to be part of it. How can I follow Allah?
Yeah.
When I see my mom, being battered or being, laying on the floor and being, kicked and all of those kinds of things.
Especially if the perpetrator is using the text, the Quran and the Sunnah to manipulate. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's much more likely for a child to say, "Halas, right? I'm done.
I'm out of here. Yes, I'm out of this religion. That's it.
Right?
Yeah.
Instead of learning, like, our job is really to plant those seeds of the beautiful, positive things that we learn in Islam, not to pass on those things that are not part of Islam at all to begin with. So we are protecting this idea of, it's funny because I was in Palestine over the summer, and we were working with this new Family Protection Act, and family protection is supposed to be the base of Sharia law, right, around families. The idea is to protect the family, but how you protect the family becomes sort of like this double-edged sword, right? So we protect the family by shutting up and making sure that everybody stays married no matter what, or we protect the family by opening our mouths, by offering support, by shining light into difficult situations, knowing that the only way to preserve a family is to really rid it of these behaviors that are not Islamic at all.
Yeah.
So
stop, educate, and help. That's really the core.
Exactly. And really being through family protection. Like through family protection isn't, sort of like the robo wives who just like nod their head. And it's always fascinating to me. I took a course last year during Women's History Month about the companions of the Prophet, peace be upon him, the female companions. And they were a crazy bunch. They were not quiet at all. They were not well behaved. They were always complaining. And even Allah answered their prayers, right? So when we talk about the verses that say men and women, that there was one of the companions of the prophets who went and said, hey, she was asking for inclusive language. What's going on with the Quran? Why men? And nobody told her.
Actually, it was one of his wives who said
right,
that.
Right, exactly. Nobody told her, be quiet, just sit over there. The verses, the surah started to come down. Men and women. Women were heard. There was, of course, our sister who went and said, my husband is being terrible. He's telling me I am the same as the back of his mother. And there was
Quran.
There was immediate response from Allah.
Yes.
There wasn't sit down, shut up, and behave. There was absolutely right, sister.
And Allah does not like oppression. We all know that. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, where there's a dua of the oppressed is answered without any barrier, directly answered, without any intercessions or any barrier. Like it goes straight to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
It's absolutely. And the least, when we think about this idea of, and you are garments to one another, a garment giving you warmth and protection and adornment, and how well we treat our garments, right? So when we buy that, I have a new pair of white sneakers. I don't know why I ever bought white sneakers. It's the most terrible thing ever, right? So I'm walking around, even when I walk, I'm being very careful about where I put my feet. So my white sneakers stay white, and I have the white shoe polish just in case. How do we treat our garments to make them to remain to be illustrious and beautiful and to serve us well? We take care of them. We are careful how we use them. We are, we buy this
special place, special cover, right? Exactly.
Some people have
and that's just a piece of cloth,
right?
And just a piece of object. It's not even a real
but
thing to do with a human.
I love it, but it's beautiful. But it is a beautiful, very educative analogy, because we think about when we put that garment on, how we care for each other, what we give to each other, and that being our model, right? And for me, when I think about this idea of sakina, right? That and I love this because it's also very helpful to use against like sort of nosy mother-in-laws who want you to have babies. And it's like, you know what? The goal of marriage in Islam is sakina. It's just to build peaceful places.
Yeah. Calmness.
Because we know that if we want people to be believers, they need a place of calm, right? They need a shelter from the storm of outside, especially those of us who are living maybe not in Muslim majority countries or Muslim majority communities, where there's all sorts of, things that we have to confront during the day. We have Islamophobia. We have people who have
discrimination, all of that.
We have oppression in other ways. That our home is supposed to be that place of sakina. The home is supposed to be where we can grow and learn.
Yeah, love and mercy, mawadda and rahmah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Through love and mercy. So we're not only told what we're supposed to do, but how we're supposed to do it. Which I said it's the beautiful, beautiful part of Islam that somehow really is getting literally lost in translation, and we need to go back to. If we are going to make a difference within our lives and the lives of our families and the lives of our communities. And I know we are supposed to keep in mind, we have about 15 minutes, right?
So we wanna keep in mind question and answer. We want to be able to answer everybody's question. So let's see if there's any. So the first question, Assalamu alaikum. Do you think domestic violence is used by some Western organizations to attack Islam? And what is the answer for that?
So that's exactly what I spent my whole morning writing a research paper about, because that's actually, so this is what happened in Palestine, right? We had a law written written with Sharia in mind, right? How to protect women, and the population itself rejected it because they said this sounds like the UN. This sounds like a Western, entity trying to colonize us and to tell us how to believe. I do think absolutely 100%. My opinion, not Peaceful Families, absolutely 100%. Women's rights is being used as a tool to focus on Islam. What we do know is, again, Islam has been the protector of women's rights way before the United States, way before there was equal voting rights, way before there was laws.
Right, we were talking about that. We were saying that even
right.
in United States, voting rights
did not
it's only 100 years old. It did,
after
yes.
the 60s, domestic violence was not a crime until late 70s, right?
Yes.
So in Islam, it's always been
it's all new history.
It's always been not okay. But I do absolutely believe that it is being used. Now, how do we fight that? Is, again, we go back to our deen. And we show people and we talk to people about how this is not part of our deen, that we, in the early Black American communities of Islam, that was one of the things that was so impressive about them, was that women were treated as treasures, that there wasn't violence against women within, again, not saying that everybody was perfect. We're talking about what was put out to the community, right? Mm-hmm. So if we want to fight back, or it's us providing corrective information, right? Which is a lot of what we do. So a lot of what I do is to go into organizations, we call it Mythbusters, right? Gender roles, what Islam says about gender, what Islam says about marriage, what Islam says about, covering, what Islam says about human rights, all of those kinds of things. So our best defense is going on offense, which is saying, this is our deen. Welcome, come on in, let me tell you about what Islam says about gender rights, what Islam says about human rights, what Islam says about marriage. It's not hiding and saying like, no, we're, or being defensive. I don't have to be defensive. I have the best model and the strongest words, just going to the Quran, just going to the Hadith. So if someone questions me about what Islam says, it's very easy. Now, at the same time, between us, we do then need to keep an eye on what's going on in our communities, because we can't promote that this is what Islam says if we don't then turn our eye to our brother or our sister who is living in a situation or promoting something else.
Absolutely, because it is oppression. It is truly oppression. And if we turn our eyes or turn the other way from it, we are actually approving or being part of this oppressed action. And it's very important to understand that, because I think we have that tendency where we go the other way because, it's between husband and wife, let's leave it alone. But it truly is, you're agreeing with total oppression. Right.
Right. So thank you so much for that question. It was one of my favorites.
Okay. And do we have a next question? Is when can I do as a Muslim to either prevent DV or help someone in DV? Are there places one can volunteer?
Another amazing question. Thank you so much.
And that's right up your
right there. So
Peaceful Families.
Right. Welcome.
Yes.
So one thing that we do, that we did do this year, that we're hoping to make an annual event, which is First Friday for Families, which was the first Friday in October, the first Juma, that we had a big event. So we had purple hijabs, we had masjids talking about domestic violence, we had all sorts of awareness, especially during Domestic Violence Month. One is to just talk about it. It's so funny. When we train people to talk about domestic violence in masjids, we're told that we don't never talk about the violence, don't use those words, domestic violence, because nobody will listen. You have to say positive family functioning. And my own masjid, who knows me by now, this is the first time after 2 years I finally said, okay, today we're going to really just talk about the violence, because I presented it in every other way. Let's really get to it. So one is to talk. to bring it up in your local masjid. Absolutely, in terms of helping someone, like I said, we do have on our website, we have a national directory. So if someone is in need, you go into that page, you find your state or your location, and there are resources there. That is not something that we don't do the emergency care, because we are sort of the national umbrella. But we do have our sister organizations, both in Manavdi and on the national directory, that do. So you go in and you find where to go. The same I would say with volunteering. You're always welcome to volunteer with Peaceful Families. Like I said, we have trainings of trainers all the time. And then we have other kinds of, we have a social media. First of all, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We have an amazing in your 20s IT department that has posts almost every single day that are amazing and fun. We had Archer Obey with his purple hat on for Domestic Violence Month, by the way. That's my favorite meme of the year. I was so excited. For those of you who know that Turkish program, we did have him in his purple bay hat. We have social media programs going on all the time, but also locally. So if you want to do more hands-on, go to your local domestic violence. So each state has what's called a coalition of domestic violence providers. I will tell you, they will be so happy to see a Muslim face, because they many times do not have anyone to sit with sisters who know they need a prayer mat, or they need shallah, they need hijab. This is how to get them to a mosque that's different than their mosque. Sometimes it's about translation. So please also volunteer with us, but also go to your local.
I think the local even have mentors who they can call and talk to, and support them, actually.
On the program,
there's a lot of program. There's plenty of programs.
But having Muslim volunteers is a huge...
and we need more.
Many times we
need more. We need more volunteers, for sure.
Right. And they don't know what to do. They really don't. If a sister walks in, they don't know where to begin. They don't know anything about the culture, about the religion, about, and like simple things like she needs.
Well, they're themselves. They've been oppressed for so long that they've lost the will to make decisions. Some of them cannot even make their own decisions.
Right.
Simple decisions.
But no, I was talking about the domestic violence organizations themselves.
Okay. No, I'm talking about, I see. Oh, you've talked about the organizations themselves.
The organizations
themselves don't do. Oh, okay.
With Muslims, they're like, they don't know what halal food is. They don't know what prayer mats are. They don't know what, they don't know where a masjid is. They don't know what language the person might speak. They may not understand if there's immigration issues. So all of those things. You're right. The sisters themselves often just need someone to listen. They don't even need advice, because what we don't want to do is start giving them advice.
No, not advice. But I'm saying just mentoring and just to listen to them. But the thing is also they can't. A lot of them can't even make decisions.
Right, because you lose.
They can't make, because you lose the ability to. Yeah,
it's very interesting, because one of the things I actually am a certified, because I am a licensed psychologist, both here and in Palestine. But one of the things that I'm certified in is perpetrators treatment, right? So so unfortunately, when males get in trouble for domestic violence, I am their punishment, right? They have to go to classes. And one of the things that I talk about with them is, when you teach someone that they don't have they don't know how to make decisions at all, how are they going to honor you when you're not there? How are they going to make good decisions? It just, if you're trying to create this complete dependence, it's not the same with kids, right?
Right.
If we want children to make good decisions, we have to let them make decisions, and make some little mistakes or whatever. So if you have a partner that you're not allowing to know what money is, she's just going to jump to another partner because she doesn't have any other choice, right? So you're really setting yourself up. If you have a wife who you are teaching, or a child that you're teaching and has power, then and this is my always question, like, don't you want to know that they're with you because they love you, not because they're afraid of you? And that becomes a very powerful sort of like wake up call for folks. It's like, wow, yeah, of course. I don't want a family that's with me or that listens to me just because they're terrified of me.
The next question that we have, Assalamu alaikum. How can we tackle the thinking that standing up in an abusive situation is being a disrespectful wife or a child.
Right. And
Yeah.
we do have the thing of Sabbath, right? We're supposed to be
Yes.
patient, and we're supposed to be patient. But I think, again, going back to our Dean and going back to our stories is so simple, right? Because we are told, yes, be patient, but confront oppression. We're not told to be
Right.
patiently oppressed. We're told to
Right.
be keep patient. Everything is a
But
test
you have
from
to fight
God.
oppression. You
But
absolutely
we
have
have
to
to fight oppression. So it
You have
is
to
not
fight
our
oppression.
job to sort of
Yes.
be. And I
Yeah.
love, really, I love the command that we have within so many of our surah, which is, your job is to help the oppressor realize his error, right? So your job is
Yeah.
not, when you accept it, you're helping them really go down a very bad path of non-believing behavior. I do know that it is an issue. And I think, again, I think it's something that we tackle in the masjid, we tackle it online, but we also tackle it at a family barbecue, and we tackle it around the table at Eid, and we tackle it when we're eating breakfast and eating our kake. Like, we have to be able to talk about it within our own families, model that within our, to be respectfully disagree, right? We need a new car. I want the blue one. You want the bright yellow one. I respectfully, really, disagree with that decision, so that our children also see this, because this, again, doesn't start when you're a wife. This starts when you're, a 3-year-old, a 5-year-old, a 7-year-old child watching your parents interact, and seeing
Yeah.
what happens.
And a lot of them are themselves, like we mentioned earlier, are victim of abusive parents, and you see that.
Absolutely, because
Yeah,
children do
yeah.
not learn what we tell them. Children
Right.
learn what they see and what they
See,
hear.
exactly the
So if you
model.
see and you live abuse in your home every single day, if you see disrespect between partners, if you see violence, then that's just what you learn. Even if you really don't want to, it is what you learn.
I think we have time for one more question, maybe.
Inshallah.
Inshallah. Is there any? Is it?
That's
Let's
okay.
see. Oh, here you go. Subhanallah, jazakumullah khairan for all the work you are doing. I deal with a lot of misconceptions you mentioned. Wayakum.
It's amazing to me. I did a program in a West African mosque. I also lived in West Africa for a fair amount of time.
I think you've been around the world.
I have. And it was an older gentleman who was like in his 60s, and he cried. He said, I helped my sister leave a domestic violence situation. I know she would have died if I didn't. And had been like 20 years before. He's like, but I still am afraid I won't be forgiven for destroying her marriage.
Wow.
So those beliefs, that strong sort of tendency to believe that the family is primary and should not be broken, even, those are very, it was heartbreaking. And luckily all the sisters in that audience were like, you are our hero, you did the right thing, mashallah.
So that takes a long time to change, though.
But this gentleman was older in age, and he literally cried. He's like, I'm so afraid that I did something bad, even though I know, like, I saw she was going to die if I left her there.
Subhanallah.
He was still, it's that fear. It's that, and again, I think it's so sad because our religious tradition is so beautiful. And we are assured of God's righteousness and of his, backing of justice. And when we turn our
that's
back
one of
on
his
that
attributes.
and we follow these sort of
just, yes. Yes.
When we follow these dark ideas that people have given us about who our Allah is, what our faith tradition says, it's so sad, because it takes not only half our deen, it takes, so much of the light of following Islam away. Thank you for dealing with all of those misconceptions. And it takes each of us, right? It takes each of us to throw seeds around wherever we are and let justice grow.
And we hope the seeds will be
Oh,
fruitful eventually, inshallah. Okay, let's see if there's any other. I think we're out of time.
1 minute.
Yeah,
I will ask you to go to our website, peacefulfamilies.com.
please, yes.
You will
Thank
find events, you will find information, you will find partnerships. Please, please, please visit our website. You are always welcome. If you have specific issues, again, the national hotline or our national directory, and then always you can reach out to us and we will try to find you someone within your community to talk to as well.
Dr. Denise, thank you so much. You have given us a wealth of information, a treasure box that we all can go to and benefit, definitely, especially in a matter that's incredibly serious. Don't forget, everyone, to check out the Peaceful Families Project website. There's a lot of information there. And all the project that Dr. Denise talked about in the beginning. I thank you very much. And it's been an honor and pleasure, actually, to talk to you and discuss all of these important issues. And let's close with Surah Al-Asr, inshallah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلى الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر وآخر والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته جزاكم الله خيرا.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. And of course, I always say whatever you heard that you like came from the mouth of Allah, whatever errors, those are absolutely mine. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Jazakallah khairan. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.